Okay, so I'm going to start. What we're going to do in this session is we're going to try and give you an overview of international medical travel. We have both an international perspective and a perspective from some countries that are involved in medical tourism already. And I'm going to start by just talking about some of the challenges and opportunities in medical tourism as I see them at the current moment, and what potentially the challenges are, particularly for Italy as it develops as a medical tourism destination. If you don't know me, my involvement in medical travel, many years ago I grew up in the hospital market in the UK, the international patient market, and that's where I became familiar with medical travel. I don't like the word medical tourism. It's not about tourism, it's about international patient travel from one country to another. And I've been involved for the last 13 years running a business called Intuition that provides information through consumer sites like Treatment Abroad and Fertility Treatment Abroad. And we also publish International Medical Travel Journal, which is a kind of resource for people in the business wanting to understand how this business works. We also run and bring together people in a couple of events. Sorry, but the slides aren't advancing. One we ran recently in Croatia, and an interesting one that we ran in the USA, where we focused on the USA market and the flows of patients into and out of the USA. The message I have for Italy is this one. This is a guy who was born in Spain. He lived in America most of his life, but he wanted to be buried in Italy, and he's buried in Rome. And it's a quote that's often used to people who are developing new businesses and developing new things. And he said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And I think what you need to make sure in Italy is that you don't repeat some of the mistakes that have been made in the past. What we've seen in medical tourism over the last 10 years is a gold rush. The term medical tourism probably appeared about 10, 11, 12 years ago, and suddenly countries all over the world, and particularly in Europe, started to go digging for medical tourism gold. So here's just a few of the countries in Europe where the government, the tourism board, or groups of hospitals have gathered to promote medical tourism. The interesting thing for me is that there's been a massive churn rate. So what's happened over the last 10 years is lots of people have dived in to the medical tourism market with mixed success. Some of them are still there and doing very well, and you will see some people at this conference today who've made a great success out of the medical tourism business. But the reality is a lot have dived out of the medical tourism business and gone into another business in healthcare that they find much more profitable and much more successful. Many people have failed. Many people have started destination programs, or started as agencies or facilitators, or set up international patient departments and have failed to achieve their objectives. So what I want to do is give you an idea of what they got wrong. So what can you learn from? How can you make sure that you don't make the same mistakes as these people? The first issue is really about believing the hype. Secondly, a lack of a clear strategy. And thirdly, putting promotion, price, and place before product. So let me explain those. Firstly, believing the hype. The question that I get asked all the time at IMTJ is, how big is this market? And my honest answer is, I don't know. The problem is that you hear all sorts of figures. If you look on the internet, you'll hear numbers like this. It's worth 5 billion, 38, so on and up to 100. Last year, we had a figure quoted in the USA that this market was worth $438 billion, and it was 14% of the world's tourism dollars. This was publicised in the USA. It came from a visa report. This was complete and utter misinformation. This was fake news. This was an alternative fact. The market is nowhere near that size. This organisation corrected that figure after it had been questioned and reduced the number by 9-fold, down to about, maybe it's about 30, 40 billion, and that's probably about the right number. But people have believed that hype, and if you get a chance, read an article in The Economist. I want to pick. This article was about why healthcare has failed to globalise, and they highlighted the key points that you need to learn. Firstly, growth didn't meet what people expected to. So people dived into the market expecting it to go like this, and it didn't. In some areas of the world, medical tourism is in decline. The number of patients travelling is going down. If you go to the Gulf markets, which have been the boom markets for places like the UK, the Germany and the USA for many years, you will see that governments are cutting back on their expenditure on sending patients abroad. Patient interest has been lower than expected. There just isn't the awareness in the source markets that they can go and do this. The savings are insufficient, so numbers get thrown around about how much you can save for travelling, and the reality is that the savings aren't as great. And when you factor in travel and accommodation, then the saving comes down. So it's not necessarily always about price. And the issue about a lack of recourse, what do you do if something goes wrong? And in the UK, what we see in our media is a very bad reputation for medical tourism, because what the media focuses on is when it goes wrong. So we have press reports, we have TV programmes about British patients who've gone abroad, the hospital abroad or the agent hasn't provided the right kind of care, they come home, there's a problem, and our NHS, our National Health Service, has to fix it. Secondly, lack of a clear strategy. Let's move on. The common mistake is this. I don't know the key to success, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody. So a hospital or a destination wants to be everything to everyone in the world. And the medical tourism market is very complicated. You have flows to and fro from countries for different reasons. So you get this two-way traffic. Patients coming into your country, patients leaving your country. This is the UK medical tourism data. So the UK is a supplier of patients to countries in Europe, but it's also a recipient. The numbers are about the same, but they're very, very different types of patients. In the last year or two, we've seen many more Brits going abroad for treatment, and that's because of pressure on our National Health Service. But the UK, we have hospitals in London where 25% of the private hospital income in London is from international patients. So you have this two-way flow. Just to flip through a few examples, and you need to think about, these are all kind of medical tourists, but as individual patients, they are all very different in terms of their needs. Take this guy, Ayman, he's gone from Qatar to USA for heart surgery, paid for by his government. This is Linda. She's gone from the UK to Belgium for gastric bypass surgery. This is a completely different type of patient. Bill and Sue, they've gone from the USA to Costa Rica for IVF surgery. Ada, she's gone from Germany to Hungary for rehabilitation after a knee surgery, paid by her insurance company, which will happen in Germany but would never happen in the UK. And this is Matilda. She's from Milan. And where's she gone? Croatia to have her teeth fixed. I was in a clinic in Croatia 3 weeks ago where the coach leaves Milan at midnight. The patients travel 5-6 hours to Croatia. The clinic in Croatia opens at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. They have 130 Italian patients every day. They do not treat any other nationality. 2,000 Italians crossing the border into Croatia every month in that unit. So you get these two-way flows. So the message is you really need to think about who you're targeting, the different segments, different needs. And my final point is about putting these three things. What destinations do is think about promotion. They often create a cluster. Group of hospitals get together, the tourism board, the ministry gets together, and they start to market and sell and promote medical tourism. What they don't do a great job of is remove the risk and the uncertainty of ensuring that the people involved in that business in their country are very, very good at what they do. The example I would look at is Malaysia. It is the IMTJ's medical travel destination of the year. What Malaysia has done brilliantly is deliver a very, very coordinated patient experience, right from the first touch with the country or a hospital through to arrival at the airport, where they have a dedicated lounge for international patients coming in, and throughout their patient experience, there is always someone caring and looking after them. The other thing that they do very well is they measure it. They've invested a great deal of money in this, and they count international patients who come from one country to another. Very complicated algorithm, but they collect data from their hospitals in a very defined way and measure their success. So, how does Italy prepare for the future? Basically, learn from the past, decide on your strategy, design an outstanding patient experience, really get the product and the service right, and of course, measure success. If you want to know more, I hope I've given you an interesting background to the market as a whole. Please take a look at IMTJ. There's lots of stuff there. If you're looking at markets, you can subscribe and find out what the opportunities are. Thank you.